There is a force, an ancient force, that is constantly pulling at us, and most people don't even recognize it. And you're not going to see people bowing down to any idols or any, dark candles and star chambers or anything else. But the forces of Baal are just as strong today as they were 3,000 years ago. Rabbi Daniel Lapin is here. He's from the American Alliance of Jews and Christians. And Rabbi, let's go contemporary context.
Absolutely. And really what we're talking about, Glenn, is what I call the clash of destiny. Mm-hmm. And that's why I portray that in that audio CD program. People have to understand that there is a tug we all feel between two opposing forces. Now, a little earlier we were talking about the appeal of the Baal. Well, here it is. On the one hand, I can choose a God which says, I am providing you with a book of rules and rituals and restraints, and you follow these, and you're going to be able to maintain your own health, the health of your family, the health of your neighborhood, the health of your society, and that means military health, economic health, moral health on every level. But here are the rules, and they're pretty tough. And there's another God that says, hey, come with me. You can do whatever you feel like. Everything will be cool. You don't have to worry about a thing. That is the appeal of the Baal. It is the personal trainer who shows up at the door and says, okay, time to get to work, and you're now in for an hour and a half of the most painful experience you've had ever since the last time he was there.
I know that guy.
You know him, right? Mm-hmm. And on the other hand, there's somebody else who knocks on the door and says, hey, let's go party.
I know that guy too.
Right? Now, which one is more appealing? That is the terrifying, seductive power of the Baal. And that's what William Golding captured so beautifully in his book, Lord of the Flies. The name coming, as I said, from the second book of Kings in the Bible, Beelzebub, right, meaning some devilish satanic force. In Hebrew, Baal-zebub, or Lord of the Flies, exactly what it means. And the word Baal, by the way, in general, meaning dominator, master, tyrant, owner.
Wow.
In other words, submit to the Baal and he owns you. And the idea, of course, is that people say, well, just take away your religion, just take away all your civilized conceits, and the true human nature with all its beauty and goodness will emerge.
No.
And what William Golding did so well in the book of Lord of the Flies, which shows what happens when you take away the structures of society. This is a rather nerve-wracking picture of how quickly very civilized and very proper English schoolboys turned into young savages.
This is from the movie, and it is what's incredible to me is this proves Darwinism, if you will, or progressivism wrong. They say, we get better, man gets better, and just the unenlightened ones. No. Man, natural man, is an enemy to God. And it takes effort in each of us as individuals to conquer that in our own life.
That's exactly right. And in the development of a young human being, where is the first moment that that little child is exposed to the idea of what feels good is not what is acceptable? We, your parents, are going to impose upon you the restraints of what we call civilization. You want to just do whatever feels good. We call that potty training. Mm-hmm. That's the first time the little kid is told, you know what? You can't just let go whenever you feel like it. You've got to start learning that there are appropriate times and places, and there are inappropriate times and places, because civilized human beings distance themselves from their bodily waste. And you'll pardon me, I don't mean to get graphic or vulgar in any way at all, but this is something that lies at the heart of a biblical vision of civilization, where in Deuteronomy even the Israelite soldier is told, don't you dare just relieve yourself out in the open. You got to take care of your bodily needs. You make sure that in your backpack you got a spade. And I don't care how busy the war is and how much is going on, but you make sure you bury your excrement. You don't just leave it out in public.
Okay. This is why when you said excrement to me on that, you said, you know, excrement is part of the worship. I made a face back in December like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. Because I have been watching the Occupy Wall Street. And you can go Occupy Wall Street, you can go to Woodstock, but that's a big part of these things, is the smearing of excrement on things and the defecation and the going into churches. Why would they go in London? They're going into churches, they're doing it in New York, and they're going in and they are smearing it on the altars. And,
correct.
Right. So yes. What is that?
Well, where else do we see it? In Guantanamo Bay, we find frenzied fanatics flinging feces.
Right.
That's what they do. Where else do we find it? Well, the French Revolution smeared feces over the Cathedral of Notre Dame on the inside. You can still see marks of it, unfortunately. So this is very basic. In other words, virtually every culture, when it wants to come up with the worst expletive, when it wants to say you are a absolute worst and most reprobate, depraved individual imaginable, lacking those adjectives, they use words that have to do with bodily waste. That's what they do. Mm-hmm. So what happens is, and I think what we're trying to do here, Glenn, is not sound wacky. We don't want to sound weird. We don't want to make any pronouncements from on high. We want to lay out the evidence so that everybody watching can see for themselves. You don't have to take anything on faith. I have no special insight. I'm not going to tell you anything you can't find out for yourself. I just want to connect the dots. I want to show you the videotape rather than a photograph. Okay. I want to lay things out. So it is not an accident that one of the most celebrated artists of a couple of decades back is a guy called Andrew Serrano. And one of his most glorious pictures, one of his pieces of art that just shook up the American art establishment, because this really showed what art was all about. Well, you know, artists are more sensitive than many of us to the mood of the times. They are more sensitive to the cultural nuances going on. And so when I speak of the clash of destiny, the clash is between God and the Baal. Or to be more specific, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and the Baal, which he warned against. There is that tension, if you like, the penthouse and the cellar. Mm-hmm. And Andrew Serrano was very aware of that. So his great work of art, and I have a picture here, if it's not too disturbing.
I think we have it up on the. Do we have it up on the plasma up here? Yeah.
Well, I want you to see it, because what he did was, and you'll pardon me, but he urinated into a jar, and then he took a crucifix and submerged it in the urine.
I remember this. It's like, excuse the language here, but it's like Piss Christ or something, right?
That is the name of the piece. That's exactly right.
And I remember this. I think this got funding from Washington.
It probably did. Yeah. Why wouldn't it?
Do you remember there was another one with, I think, elephant dung?
Yeah, that was the Brooklyn Museum.
Recently, like in the last few years.
Yes. In fact, the mayor at the time was Rudy Giuliani.
Yep, right here.
And here is the picture. Here's a clear depiction of it.
Now, this is the Virgin Mary, if I'm not mistaken.
At the Brooklyn Museum.
Right.
Smeared with elephant dung. And
you would think to yourself, why would they do that?
Well, for the same reason you'd submerge a crucifix in urine. What you're trying to do as an artist is say, hey, guys, don't follow that Virgin Mary or don't follow that crucifix. See the real you. See who you are. You are nothing but a sophisticated baboon. You are nothing but an animal, and stop putting on these fancy airs, talking about a being in the sky and a God who tells you what's right and wrong. Stop doing that. Realize when you get right down to it, you're nothing more than excrement and urine.
Okay, so take me then to like the police car and to the, because what they did in the French Revolution, they did smear. They had sex on the altars, they smeared excrement over everything, and they redubbed the Cathedral of Notre Dame as the Cathedral to Wisdom, I believe, or the Temple of Wisdom.
Yes.
So what does that, I mean, is that like a dog marking their territory, or what is that?
Well, you see, our excrement is the system God built into us. Is such that God never allows us and doesn't want us, as long as we are body and soul. I don't believe God wants us to forget that we're not angels, we're not spirits yet, we are spirits with a body. And that is a reminder that we have a body, and it is a reminder to rise above it. And that's why in the West, again, in the civilization that sprang from the pages of the Bible, the bathroom was always treated very seriously. It was an outhouse. And later on, when economics allowed and when technology allowed for it to be moved into the house, we treated it in a very special way. I don't know about your house, Glenn, but does the phrase pieces of soap that look like seashells mean anything? Or monogrammed towels? What for? Or why fancy wallpaper in a small room?
Because we're married to women, that's why.
That's exactly right. And let it be said that Baal exerts a far stronger force on men than on women. The reason that there are more men in prison is not sexism. It's because of Baal.
Okay.
The reason that... And I think we may even have a picture of this as well, but a few years ago, there was a Time magazine cover story saying that infidelity is genetic. Yeah, that you see it on the screen.
Okay.
And millions of men picked up that magazine and said, yes, I love that. Because according to the Baal, only the body matters.
Okay.
And so the product of the body, which is excrement and waste, acquires an almost sacramental status.
Okay.
And that is why prisoners, not only in Guantanamo Bay, but in penitentiaries in the United States, flinging feces at guards is common practice. It's one step beyond calling somebody a bodily orifice, or calling somebody you're nothing but a pile of human waste. You can go one stage further and actually let them have it in real... That's all it is. Yeah. And that is why Occupy Wall Street was not only a place where fecal assault was tolerated and celebrated, but it was a place where filth in general...
Because it's not just bodily waste, it is all filth. It's letting yourself... It's really letting yourself go.
Letting yourself go in every respect, yes.
Okay.
That's sliding down the slippery slope to the cellar.
Okay. So in the ancient worship of Baal, when they would go out into the forest, right? Because that's where it was usually worshipped, out in the woods or something.
It could be anywhere.
Anywhere?
Yes.
Then this is where the violence and the sex and the rapes and the filth and all that stuff in those worship, I don't know, ceremonies or whatever it was, right? That's what was celebrated.
And going out to the forest, as you said, was replayed in the middle of August 1969, where 300,000 young Americans went to a field in upstate New York near Bethel, and they had the festival of Woodstock. Now, these were the children of Americans who had fought World War II, come back, worked hard, and built up a wonderful America. Their children were having sex in the open, smoking pot, and defecating all over the place. That's what happened in Woodstock. But remember, we're using a videotape, not a series of snapshots. And so if we're going to look at Woodstock, we need to look at what came before that, which was the beginnings of the secularization of America.
Okay, stop. We're going to pick it up there next.